KVUE Defenders working to answer your questions about COVID-19 and the Omicron variant. Today, we're bringing in an expert who has experience working with COVID-19 patients. Dr. Shravani Dharbhakula works at Johns Hopkins School of Medicine, and she's kind enough to join us today to answer some of your questions. Thanks for the time, Doctor.
Thanks so much for having me.
Let's get to our viewer questions. Melissa in Austin asking, if I have had COVID-19 and have now tested negative, but my spouse still has COVID-19, will I get infected again, or am I immune as of now?
Good question. It's nuanced, so there are several parts to that answer. The first issue is the timeline. So how long has it been since you were infected and your spouse was infected? What's that timeline there? And if it's been a long time, so if it's been 3 months or more than that, then you have to wonder if the immunity that you might have gained from natural infection or even from a vaccination is starting to decline. Now, assuming that you both got infected around the same time, then the questions kind of change. Now the question is, are you immunocompromised? Or, for instance, are you getting cancer treatment? Are you diabetic? If you're immunocompromised, or perhaps if you're elderly, you might not mount a natural immune response that's as great as some other people. And so if you guys got infected around the same time, a healthy person would ideally mount a decent immune response starting at about day 3 of infection that would allow them to have a fair degree of immunity and therefore not get reinfected, at least not immediately. If there's immunocompromised, like I said, or if someone is unvaccinated or not boosted, in that case, the immunity from natural immunity isn't as reliable. So is it possible to get reinfected in that scenario? Yes, but is it unlikely? Yes, it's unlikely. Now, the third thing is the question of which strain were you actually infected with, and which strain was your partner infected with. So if you were both infected with the same strain, then great. Those antibodies that you develop should be good to protect you both. But if you had Delta and your partner had Omicron, then the antibodies that you mount are going to be different, and you're not necessarily going to be immune to getting infection from each other. And so that is the really complicated but hopefully helpful response.
Very helpful. Thanks so much for that. Our next question is from Sherry in Lakeway. Talking about testing, a lot of people have questions about testings. Her question is, when should we retest after having COVID?
Yeah, so this is also a really great question. When you have COVID-19, basically, the PCR is your most sensitive test. That means it's going to be the best test at telling you if you have an infection. That being said, in terms of getting out of isolation or figuring out if you're not infectious anymore, the PCR is not a great test, because for up to 90 days after your infection, your PCR is going to test positive, even if you're not infectious. And the reason is that a PCR may actually detect live virus or even dead virus. And so it's going to detect even virus that has no clinical implications and is not going to get anyone else sick. That being said, a rapid test can be helpful. So a rapid test will be positive during the infectious period. And if it is positive, it's very likely that you are still infectious and you should isolate. So a rapid test might be helpful, right away to give you some information about if you're good to leave isolation. But a PCR is really helpful in the beginning to figure out if you have infection, but not so helpful after beyond that, because it's going to be positive for 90 days.
Dr. Dharbhakula, thanks so much for your time this afternoon answering our viewer questions. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.